Welcome to the Net Wealth Nest podcast, the show that helps everyday people build real financial stability, starting from wherever you are. Whether you're working your way out of debt or just starting to save, we're here to help you grow your net wealth to your first big wealth milestone. Each episode, we break down the mindset shifts, practical tools, and real-life actions that can transform your financial future. Thanks for tuning in. Now let's get to work building your net wealth nest. Welcome to the Net Wealth Nest podcast. I'm your host, Jim LaBeouf. Thanks for joining us for another episode as we continue to work to help you build financial stability in your lives and, of course, grow your net wealth. Today, we're going to be talking about the rise of the BNPL. Okay, so if you don't know what the BNPL is, it is the Buy Now, Pay Later movement, and it is similar to a credit card, but is being offered in the retail environment, specifically online, where people are able to go and click a button and spread their payments out over a certain time frame. Based off of data that was recently released, younger generations, mainly millennials and Gen Z, are using this at an honestly alarming increasing rate, where over 50% of millennials and Gen Z have reported using a buy now, pay later method in their retail shopping, not a credit card, specifically a buy now, pay later type loan over the last year. Let's talk a little bit about what is a buy now, pay later loan. And so if you shop on Amazon or almost any other retailers, sometimes you'll see under your cart checkout a little button that says, it usually is the company Affirm or Klarna, or there's a couple other ones, but those are the two biggest ones. It'll say buy now, pay later, or X payments, usually 4 payments of a certain dollar amount. And it's just basically the total of what you're looking to buy divided by, usually it's 4 is the most popular one right now. On anything about $1,000 and under, you will see bigger purchases where they'll offer longer term financing as well. The buy now, pay later, that's usually 4 payments, doesn't have any interest on it, which is enticing to most individuals as they're not paying any extra for it. Whereas the longer term ones, so usually those purchases that are $1,000 and up, are going to have some sort of interest with that. And that interest can be really aggressive depending on your credit score. We are seeing up to 34, 35, 36% at its worst. At its best, it's usually somewhere between the 15 and 20%, very similar to a credit card. But some of those lower credit scores, or if you have bad credit history, you're going to see really significant interest rates on those purchases. So some of these, when they pull it, they might just do a soft credit pull, very similar to if you go to Credit Karma as an example and get your credit score pulled. They might look at that to judge what they are willing to do, if they're willing to give you the 4 payments or not, or if it's a longer loan. And so what we're also starting to see is they're starting to report that to the credit bureaus, which is good for making a payment on time, but also people are actually making late payments, which is actually going to negatively impact their credit as they're reporting this. And we're even seeing collections on these types of loans as well. Last year, a buy now, pay later loan, like I said, it was used mainly by millennials and Gen Z, but 15 to 20% of all Americans reported that they used one of these loans over the course of last year. And again, about 50% of Gen Z and millennial reported that they used it in the last year. There's a report out there that just came out from a couple of money journals that says about 1/4 of all Americans that used a buy now, pay later loan actually made a late payment on it. And we continue to see an increase of any payments that were over 120 days, where those companies are actually reporting them to collections and then filing that off under your credit report. And this can be incredibly detrimental to your credit report overall. And so why are people using this? When you look at it, it makes it really easy to break down a payment on something that's a little bit larger purchase. When you're thinking maybe you're going to buy something for $200 and it says, four payments of $50. That seems way more feasible, maybe in somebody who has a smaller budget or is just still in that paycheck to paycheck moment. And so seeing that and understanding that they're not going to get charged interest might be a little bit easier to swallow than the full $200 right up front. That can be deceiving at times, especially because those payments aren't collected monthly. They're collected usually biweekly. So if I go to buy something right now and they use a buy now, pay later loan for most, the Affirm is the most popular one right now. And let's say it's $200. I click that button. I'm going to immediately pay $50 roughly. There'll be a little bit of taxes depending on what state you live in and all of that. So you'll pay a little bit of the tax on there. So maybe it's like $51 or $52. And then 2 weeks from now, they're going to ask for another payment of $52. And then 2 weeks from that, another payment of $52. And then the last time, which is basically 6 weeks out, they'll ask for another $52 payment. I'll have paid what I would have paid. Maybe I would have paid $208 with taxes for the item if I had just purchased it outright. I'm still only paying $208, but I need to pay $52 every 2 weeks to make that happen. The key is I need to make sure that I get that paid. And that's what we're seeing. And what I mentioned before is a quarter of those are not being paid on time. And every time we don't make a payment, now that they're starting to report to the credit agencies, that is going to be a negative ding on your credit and can keep you in that loop of living paycheck to paycheck or cycle to cycle, or hurting you in the long run if you're going to be needing your credit score to do things like rent an apartment, buy a home, buy a car, any of those other things where you might have to pay an interest rate or that your credit might qualify you or disqualify you from something. We want to keep that as clean as possible. So why can this lead to issues? First of all, if you're having to spread out the payments, my first question would be, can you actually afford the item? If you can, why are you trying to spread out payments? Is it more sustainable for you? Is it easier to justify? And that leads to another question. If you're having to justify your purchase, should you be making it? If it's not fitting in your budget, you need to spread it out. Again, most of these purchases are ending up in those want categories, things like jewelry, electronics, clothing, accessories, home decor. And so what I would ask is if it's not built in your budget and you feel the need to use Affirm as an example, or Klarna or whatever other ones to spread out those payments, it's a great opportunity for you to really look at that and ask yourself, is this what I need or is this what I want? And I'm just stuck in that cycle of purchasing what I want. And if I can spread out the payments, it makes it easier to justify. And oftentimes, part of the problem is it's so easy to do. If you look at Amazon, like when you add stuff to your cart and there's a little button right below it that says 4 payments of X over X, you just click that and it makes it so much easier versus the total payment when you actually go to checkout. And so that can make it really dangerous where you can see it get out of control a little bit, where all of a sudden you're adding a bunch of stuff to your cart. And if normal, you would go to your cart and be like, oh my gosh, this is a $600 cart. I don't have $600 to spend on all this stuff. And I don't need all this stuff. Never mind. And then a lot of people will end up clearing their cart, but it's only $80 or $120. I can do that versus 600. Again, is that a way for you to justify making an unintended expense in your budget? While we're typically seeing that it is spent on those discretionary type items, or again, those want type items, we're starting to see it trickle into the needs category, mainly in the grocery category. And again, it's something to take a look at and ask yourself, is there something else in my budget that's going awry where I'm struggling to get my groceries? Am I not looking for the best deals on groceries? What is in there and what am I doing? And why is this happening? And then the other piece of why this is a problem is what we're seeing specifically is the majority of people who are using these buy now, pay later loans typically have either a little bit below average or poor credit. And so again, when they have, that's usually a history of not making payments. And if you continue to not make payments on these, it will continue to deteriorate your credit, which is not what you want to do. You want to build your credit up. And there are plenty of ways to do that. Using one of these loans could be one way, but it's not something we typically recommend. The other thing is if you are looking at buying something more expensive, usually over that $1,000, and you're looking at a longer term loan, the interest rates, as I mentioned before, can be absolutely ridiculous. Up over 30% if you have below average or poor credit is just absolutely crazy. When you think about that, a $1,000 purchase, if you're just paying a minimum payment over the course of the year, you're going to accrue like almost $300 in interest over the course of the year. That is an incredible amount of money extra to be paying for something that costs $1,000. It's already adding an additional third of the cost to it, and that's if it's paid off inside of a year. The goal is we don't want to keep you trapped in a poor credit score. We want to build credit, but there are better ways to do it. And using these buy now, pay later loans could definitely be a red flag on you are over indexing or overspending versus what your budget says you should be spending on. Okay, so with all that said, what's our recommendation? Honestly, my recommendation is try to avoid these loans at all costs. Again, most of these items and what we're seeing from the actual reporting that's happening and what they're being spent on are those want type items. If you are looking at clothing, jewelry, electronics, any of those things, home furniture that you cannot afford unless you spread it out over payments, I just recommend you look at your budget and figure out how can I wait or how can I plan into my budget to save for that so I can purchase it all at once and purchase it in cash without having to put it on any type of buy now, pay later, or just as bad, a credit card. If you find yourself using it, again, like I mentioned before, it's a great opportunity for you to look at your budget and what areas of your budget have leaky holes or that you've increased spending or you're overspending that you can't save for this. And maybe that purchase is where you need to refocus back on your budget of, oh, I really want this new electronic item. Maybe it's a new TV. I really want this new TV, but it's not my budget. I can't afford it right now. The only way I could afford it is to put it on a credit card or do one of these loans and spread out the payments. That means I need to pause and I need to think about that. And I need to figure out how to save that in my budget so I can just buy it in cash. If you're starting to see it creep into your needs category, so let's say you get into where you're buying a bunch of groceries online and you're figuring out like, ooh, I really need to spread out my grocery payments. Again, it's just the time to question your budget and be like, okay, if I'm actually budgeting for my groceries, because that is a definite need. I need to eat to survive. Where am I going awry in other areas of my budget? Or am I spending too much on the groceries and not shopping for the best deals and just maybe shopping online because it's convenient and I can either have it delivered or I can pick it up or all those things? You need to start to look and question what areas of your budget are not working well for you and how you can figure that out. That also might mean maybe groceries have increased, as we know that some things in price are starting to increase in the United States in 2025. And so if that is the case, or maybe your rent increased, or there are other areas of your budget that are a little bit fixed that have been a struggle for you, you can also look at income. Is there another way you can generate more income, maybe with a side hustle or a second job, putting more hours in your current job? Is there a promotion that you can look to obtain to help you out with your budget as well? At the end of the day, it goes back to what we continuously harp on to start off is you need a budget. You need to build a budget. You need to look at your expenses. You need to know what all your debts are, all your expenses are, and what your income is. And you need to build a budget around that. And then lastly, you need to track that. And again, if you find yourself where you're tempted to click these buttons, ask yourself why. Is it because you just want that item in the moment? Or is it because it's a need and you're struggling with your budget to figure out how to fulfill that need? Either way, you need to go back to your budget. You need to reassess, look at your spending through whatever tracking device you're using. Again, one of my biggest recommendations, Monarch Money is a really great one. But however you're tracking it, look at it and see what those leaky holes or where your money might be spilling out of your bucket. Patch those up, get rid of those, or control your temptation to spend and know that your budget is there for a reason. It's to help you build that stability, to help you get out of that living paycheck to paycheck cycle, and to help you start building wealth. That's all we have today. Appreciate your time. As always, if you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section. We love hearing what you have to say. If you've used these products before, tell us about it. We'd love to know your experience and if there's a way that you can move away from that or what struggles you might have and why you're needing to use those. Any ideas or questions or comments that you provide us help us build content for the future for you, so that we can answer your questions and help you build the financial stability that you need and deserve. As always, if you find this information useful, please subscribe to our YouTube channel or hit that like button and follow us on the content provider for podcasts of your choice. We look forward to bringing more content to you in the future. And thanks for joining us today. We'll see you next time. My name's Jim. Bye, everybody. Net Wealth Nest LLC and Podcast is an educational platform committed to providing resources and information to empower individuals on their financial journey. Please note, we do not provide financial, tax, or investment advice. All financial decisions should be made in consultation with a qualified professional who understands your unique circumstances. Seeking personalized advice is a smart and necessary step before making any major financial commitments. Thanks so much for joining us today. If you found value in this episode, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Net Wealth Nest, and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. We read every comment,
and they help us improve and guide what topics we dive into next. And hey, if something you heard today resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with a friend, a family member, a coworker, your barber, your barista, even a stranger in line. You never know who might need this message. Remember, building net wealth is a journey, but you don't have to do it alone. Stick with us, and together, let's grow your net wealth nest.